Hey there, spooky reading fans. I noticed I've been picking a lot of older books, and so I decided to come into this century. And today I'm going to talk about Neil Gaiman. Now, it's probably no surprise to anybody who's met me or has paid any attention at all that I like Neil Gaiman. He's got this ability to be both dark and whimsical in his work, which I really enjoy. Like, it's dark without being grim, and it's disturbing, but sometimes ends on a more hopeful note. And I just love the way he's able to do that in a lot of his work. I think I first found Neil Gaiman by reading Neverwhere, which is not really a scary story overall, but it has its moments. I remember the bit with the vampires on the bridge really got me when I read that one for the first time. And then, of course, there's Sandman. Great set of graphic novels. If you've never read them, you totally should. And even in some of his lighter work, like Stardust, the witches are still darn creepy and so much fun. But I think I've been most struck by that dark whimsy kind of feeling in his work that either features younger characters or is aimed at younger readers. Things like Coraline. Oh my goodness, the other mother, right? Ooh, yes. And The Graveyard Book was another good one. But when I went looking around on my shelves, the first one I laid my hands on was The Ocean at the End of the Lane. So The Ocean at the End of the Lane is another one featuring young characters and spooky things and not being believed by adults and all of those kinds of things. So I'm going to read just a little bit of it. This is fairly far into the book, a scene I picked just because some good stuff happens and I really liked the interplay of the characters in this part. This is chapter 11. So a couple of paragraphs in, Letty and Ursula and our main character are there. "You know why," said Letty. "Why would you let them in?" She had started to cry, and I felt uncomfortable. I did not know what to do when adults cried. It was something I'd only seen twice before in my life. I had seen my grandparents cry when my aunt had died in hospital, and I had seen my mother cry. Adults should not weep, I knew. They did not have mothers who would comfort them. I wondered if Ursula Monkton had ever had a mother. She had mud on her face and on her knees, and she was wailing. I heard a sound in the distance, odd and outlandish, a low thrumming, as if someone had plucked at a taut piece of string. "It won't be me that lets them in," said Letty Hepstock. "They go where they wants to. They usually don't come here because there's nothing for them to eat. Now there is." "Send me back," said Ursula Monkton. And now I did not think she looked even faintly human. Her face was wrong somehow, an accidental assemblage of features that simply put me in mind of a human face, like the knobbly gray whorls and lumps on the side of my beech tree, or the patterns in the wooden headboard of the bed at my grandmother's house, which if I looked at them wrongly in the moonlight showed me an old man with his mouth open wide, as if he were screaming. Letty picked up the jam jar from the green moss and twisted the lid. "You've gone and got it stuck tight," she said. She walked over to the rock path, turned the jam jar upside down, holding it at the bottom, and banged it, lid side down, once, confidently, against the ground. Then she turned it right side up and twisted. This time the lid came off in her hand. She passed the jam jar to Ursula Monkton, who reached inside it and pulled out the translucent thing that had once been a hole in my foot. It writhed and wiggled and flexed, seemingly in delight at her touch. She threw it down. It fell onto the grass and it grew. Only it didn't grow. It changed, as if it were closer to me than I had thought. I could see through it from one end to the other. I could have run down it if the far end of the tunnel had not ended in a bitter orange sky. So I know that scene may not make a lot of sense if you haven't read the rest of the book, but there's just so much in it in terms of the imagery. All he does with, the way describing the way you can spook yourself out by seeing faces that aren't there, and there's a lot of childhood kinds of things. How disconcerting it was when you were a child and you saw an adult cry, because adults are supposed to take care of us, not the other way around, right? You know, I'm 50 years old now and I'm still looking for the adults to take care of me when it's time to cry, because I don't feel like I really am one yet. So I think Neil Gaiman in his writing has really been able to capture that aspect of childhood, and like I said, creepy and scary intermixed with whimsy in a wonderful way. So if for some reason you've been under a rock for the past 20 years and you haven't read anything by Neil Gaiman yet, highly recommended. Enjoy your spooky reads.